Melbourne's kind of bizarre week of whatever the hell it was. I'll start with the earthquake because I guess that was like the icing on the cake to the week. And I was at work, and the building shook for about a minute, which is probably a lot longer than what we're normally used to here. We might have ones that last a couple of seconds or 10 seconds or something like that. I'll admit, when it first started to shake in the first few seconds, I thought the protesters had driven into the base of the building and shaken the building somehow. But no, that's not what happened, because it kept shaking. And although on an intellectual level, I knew the building wasn't going to like collapse or fall over, there was a definite, sort of emotional in the gut feeling for maybe 10 seconds there that maybe it would fall over, and that was not exactly pleasant. But yeah, it just like I think they were, even though the epicenter was somewhere Mansfield, I think it was. I think I remember reading somewhere that it might have been triggered somewhere out New Zealand way under the fault line or something. But it does, I guess, highlight that these things can still happen in Australia, where earthquakes are relatively rare and not really significant in a big way like they are in, I don't know, places like the States, like in California or in Japan or something like that.
Yeah, it is a reminder for us in Australia, and it's amazing that only a couple of thousand kilometres away in New Zealand, it's a big issue. They're right on the edge of the continental plates, and of course the Ring of Fire. So they know about earthquakes there, and it was interesting to see damage to the older sort of Victorian era buildings there, where the tops of the buildings basically get shaken off, the brickwork up the top, the masonry. So very surreal, very sobering, of course. But hopefully that'll be the worst of it. And if we do get a few aftershocks, they'll just be minor tremors.
Yeah, absolutely. Although it kind of gave the the sense of anxiety for that minute sort of gave way to a whole lot of meme generation afterwards, with Dan with his hand on the earthquake button, or how many earthquake cases did we record this week, or this was the latest tactic the police used to take care of the rioters, etc. It was a lot of fun stuff that kind of came out of it as well, and I think it actually like set off a whole bunch of searching for what to do in an earthquake, curiously enough, because it's not something that I guess we would consciously be worried about most of the time, in terms of doing that sort of stuff. But yeah, so it was a lot of fun after the fact, of course. But I guess this was off the back of, I guess, where it kind of built on was this sort of general sense of anxiety in the last couple of days, which had to do with a lot of protests, which started out the front of the CFMEU headquarters, and the protesting against the vaccine mandates and the lockdowns, and it kind of just culminated in that big. I wouldn't even know if I'd call it a protest or anything really. It was just something else where they were just going around in their thousands, walking all over the Westgate Freeway, scaring the hell out of people and whatever. And it was just really bizarre. And like I had to time my exit leaving the office to make sure I didn't cross paths with them. I did happen to see a few after they were dispersing, and they thought they'd stuck it to the man that day, all that sort of stuff. Whatever. The thing that really stuck to me is that I was thinking of the film The Siege, with Denzel Washington and Bruce Willis in it. Not that it ever got that bad, obviously, but obviously the riot police came in the next day, and it's just bizarre. You're going through the city, and there's like effectively a tank truck going around, and fully armored police with their rubber bullets and whatever else, screaming at people to get down and whatever. And it's just not. It's bizarre, unsettling, and just strange on so many levels.
It is completely bizarre. I mean, if you step back, I think that you have to say that the police probably in Victoria need to reconsider their strategy. I mean, the protesters were technically, were in breach, not technically, but but of a public health order.
Mm.
You know, let's forget their actions on the day for the start. You know, and they go from moving from just giving people an expiation fee to shooting them with rubber bullets is kind of like, it doesn't make any sense on that level. So I think that needs to be considered. But watching on TV, whatever that group was doing looked weird because they didn't actually seem to have any purpose. They all seemed to have a different slogan in mind, a different reason for being there. And, of course, the behaviours of some of them were just plain wrong. So,
well, that was one of the big things that came out of it, was this idea that even in the subsequent days afterwards, that they're all leaderless. Like they're getting like random messages through Telegram or something. You know, go to this place, we'll try and start there. And there was this other curious thing where it started small and then they were just dropping people off in cars, you know, 5 at a time so that, you know, the crowd could... It obviously was not what you would call an organised protest by any means.
It wasn't. And watching them wander around, to be quite honest, made me think they were just a bunch of zombies. Like they worked without any sort of visible intelligence, any visible purpose. They moved up and down streets in response to where police presence were, but with no particular aim except to be there. And I think, you know, there's something very wrong with that, and there's something very wrong with how this sort of situation comes about. So, I mean, you know, as I said to start with, we have to, on one level, we have to try and empathise with these people, no matter how much we object to their actions and behaviours. But on the other hand, what is driving these people? Because it just isn't rational.
I mean, we can leave it maybe to another discussion on another day, but I mean, I think we've touched on this in the past too. There has to be an element of, you know, spending too much time online, reading a lot of stuff, and also getting messages from people who are posting on social media, etc. And I thought there was an interesting analogy that I'd heard that, fine, if you don't want to take the vaccine yourself, that's your choice, whatever. But what would possess you to go out in public on a platform and try to encourage other people not to take it? That's where it falls off the rails.
Oh, look, I agree. And look, the reality is while the police are suggesting that people are using, you know, secure messaging apps and all that, the place where they all meet each other is on the social platforms. And I just cannot believe in this day and age they don't know exactly who those people or where these nucleation sites for these ideas are. And as we spoke about last year, whenever Australia did whatever deal it did with Facebook, to let them off the hook as publishers, and then this is what you get. If an individual or an organisation can be responsible for a third-party comment on their post, then I do not understand how Facebook cannot be responsible for publishing that.
Yeah. Just one final thing quickly. We were talking about that whole decentralized model the other week, and a curious little funny story that I was just reading before we got on before was that apparently Redditors and Twitchers were actively going in and disrupting some of the communications for these people so they couldn't get their the correct messaging for where to meet, etc.
Explain why they were wandering around in all sorts of directions.
So maybe that's the way to deal with it. Just you know, one lot goes after another or something to get that level of disruption.
Yeah, well, that's what you would expect from people who are thinking clearly. I would also hope the authorities might have played some role in that, besides fronting up ready for cattle.
Absolutely. All right, Steve, we might wrap it up there. You know, this lockdown over in Victoria just feels like it's, you know, infinite and ongoing. There was another website, I believe it's called COVID Live, that is worth checking out. It's actually got, obviously for people in New South Wales and Victoria, they've probably got a lot more invested interest in it because it tells you on a day-by-day basis how many what targets were hit, and crucially, it also tells you how long it's expected until we hit the next target in terms of easing of restrictions, etc. Now, unfortunately for Victoria, I think the roadmap that was announced the other week was kind of indicating the beginning of November sometime for, basically a reopening of sorts, but the people behind that website did their number crunching based on the vaccines delivered in the last couple of weeks, and it turns out it might be late November. So it'll be interesting. That's a whole other 2 months really to sit through this, and if hopefully we don't get repeat actions of what we've been seeing this week because of whatever frustrations are going on around the place.
Look, I guess the message is to, the 99% of people in Victoria that are doing the right thing and just keep going.
Yep.
Eventually this will pass.